So good morning again. Thank you for joining us this morning. Today we have a presentation for you. Uh, it's a talk called Exploring Roles and Responsibilities within Spiritist Groups. Um, I want this to be a conversation. So if you have any questions and doubts, please interrupt me, raise your hand, and we'll try to answer any questions or entertain any comments, okay? The idea here is to talk about us Spiritists after the pandemic, because we had a model of Spiritist Center before the pandemic, where most of us would go to the Spiritist Center. We, from time to time, would watch one or another presentation, lecture, talk online, but it was not something that was very usual, and few people would do it on a regular basis. With the pandemic, what happened is that most Spiritist centers closed, became virtual, in the sense that a lot of the study groups and the lectures became online only. And then when the pandemic ended, people went back to the Spiritist centers, some of them. Most people did not go back to the Spiritist centers. The role of the responsibilities of Spiritists within Spiritist centers changed also. So the idea here is to talk a little bit about our work within the Spiritist community after the pandemic, okay? So this talk is based on 4 chapters of the book Light Ahead, which is a book that was published a couple of years ago, so 3-4 years ago, consisting of translations of some passages from books from Francisco Xavier, messages received from different spirits by Francisco Xavier. And we, from chapter 51 to 54, talks about Spiritist centers. So we are going to go over them and comment a little bit on our thoughts on those passages. But before going there, let's discuss a little bit what are our roles as Spiritists, right? So we can divide in 3 types of Spiritists, let's say, in general. The first ones are those that are really only interested in learning for themselves, are not interested in getting involved in the work of a Spiritist center, or do not really have any desire to be present at the Spiritist center unless there is something going on, sometimes for treatment, sometimes to receive a passes, but pretty happy and content in watching from home, participating in classes at home and studies in lectures. So if that's the case, again, this conversation is not for that type of Spiritist, because we want to go a little bit further into the role of a Spiritist center and the participation of us Spiritists in a Spiritist center. There is nothing wrong per se with a person that does not want to get involved. Each one has their own ideas of how to approach. I know some people that started studying Spiritism during the pandemic, never went to Spiritist centers before, and continue not going. They are happy with watching at a distance, and sometimes with different interests. I have a friend that watches some lectures, but also he participates in other groups, in the studies Buddhism, studies other religions, spiritualist groups. So he wouldn't call himself a spiritist. He would has different interests. So each person has their own choices on how to follow the path of evolution. So again, each one makes their own decision. Another problem that we face here in the United States, and I know for you, Marlene, that is here listening, there are places here in the US where there is no Spiritist Center anywhere close. So the ability to follow and learn through virtual classes or lectures, it's something that it didn't exist before. So in that sense, I think that for individuals, Spiritism became a much better place, because now you have access to lectures, different lectures. For us Brazilians, we have thousands of different lectures from different Spiritists. Here in the US, a little less, but if you look at the United States Spiritist Federation talks every Saturday morning, we have 3 years, more than 3 years of talks. So we have more than 200 lectures, all in English, that you can access and study. But also, there is the possibility of you going to a Spiritist Center and not find any affinities. You don't find the Spiritist Center the place that you feel comfortable. That's in a country like Brazil, where you have 15,000 Spiritist Centers, the choice is to go to the next one in the next neighborhood, to move around and find the Spiritist Center that you find affinity. But if you live in a place that there is one Spiritist Center, there are two Spiritist Centers, what's your option? Your option is either stay home and watch virtual, or like someone that I met recently that has been moving around. She's living in different countries. You start a study group, maybe at your home. You reunite 2 or 3 people that are interested in studying Spiritism, and every place in the world at least has some Brazilians that would be very willing to start a study group. So if you want to be more involved, if you want to start something, you can always start a study group at your home and study the Gospel, the Spirit's book, the basic books of Spiritism. This person that I met recently, she done that. She lived in a country that had that city that she lived had one Spiritist Center. She went there, didn't like very much because it was not really a Spiritist Center that followed Spiritism the way she thought it should. So had other things happening at the Spiritist Center. So she started a study group in her home with 3-4 people, and she was very happy with the way it went. Then she moved to another country. That was during the pandemic, and eventually she started a study group at her home again. That's the way for you to learn and to evolve, because it's very important in Spiritism that we have an open forum to discuss. When you study by yourself, you learn a lot, yes, but you are limited because you are not able to discuss. You're not able to exchange ideas. Luis always tells that he likes to be challenged. He likes people to ask questions, to disagree with him even if possible, so we can have a healthy discussion. And when you're doing everything by yourself, you lose that ability. You have doubts, and you end up either trying to find your own answers, but you limit yourself. And when you are discussing in a group, you have always the
We lost you for a moment.
Yes, I lost Joao as well. Am I still online?
Everybody
to learn
here,
and
just
where there are 2 or 3 people. Yes. Okay. Yeah,
Joao, yes, we lost you for maybe 10, 15 seconds, if you could go back.
Yeah. So Jesus told us, when 2 or 3 are reunited in my name, I will be there. So if we can have 2, 3 people, so we can discuss about our ideas, our spiritist doubts, that is always helpful. But let's go in. Yes.
You said you wanted us to interrupt you along the way, or shall we save questions to the end?
No, please. If you have a question, just or comment.
Yes, I do. Considering the way you started this presentation, there's people who want to go presentially or not. I think the big operational question is why one wants to go physically to a Spiritist center, or why should one want to go physically to a Spiritist center?
Yeah, that's the second type of a Spiritist. I was talking about those that do not want to go. That was the first part, or do not or cannot go because there is nothing around. I said there were 3 groups, right? The second group are those that go to the Spiritist Center, but do not want to get involved in the work of a Spiritist Center, right? Just want to go to receive treatment or to receive spiritual assistance, to receive passes, to watch the studies presentially, but do not want to get involved. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's just an option. And eventually, again, on our spiritual path, we, if we continue involved with Spiritism, it should be something that we should want to get involved more. And again, there are works to be done at the Spiritist Center that can start from the very basic, which is organizing the room, cleaning, giving water. I'm not talking about further responsibilities, which is give lectures, direct studies, give passes, participate in mediumship meetings. But let's now start this. Let's talk about a Spiritist group, okay? What is a Spiritist group? In this passage from the spirit called Batuira, that it's chapter 51 of Light Ahead, he compares a Spiritist group to a vessel. He says a Spiritist group serving Christ is a precious vessel that gets struck all the time, illuminated and pursued by elements that are unleashed by nature when imbalance arises. If it doesn't endure the storm, it plummets to the bottom. If it stops, it delays its journey. If it does not defend itself, it is threatened by sea monsters. If it doesn't have precise direction, it is destined to get lost, having to bear the consequences. So what he's telling us here is that comparing a Spiritist center to a vessel that is navigating, a Spiritist center is prone to attack. Who's attacking the Spiritist Center? Incarnates and discarnates. Incarnates are those that either are against Spiritism, but more important, those that go to the Spiritist Center and criticize it, are not happy with what they see, but continue coming back and have negative thoughts towards the work that is being done at the Spiritist Center. We have the protection of the spiritual guides. All Spiritist centers have a team of spirits responsible for it, but they cannot defend the Spiritist Center if those that are going there do not defend themselves. So the responsibility of the members and directors of the Spiritist Center is to have positive vibration while you are going into the center that day, during your time at the Spiritist Center, and when you leave the Spiritist Center. The safest place for a vessel to be is anchored, but that's not the role of a vessel. A vessel that is anchored has no use for anyone. The safest place for a Spiritist Center to be is closed and having only those that have elevated thoughts working. But a Spiritist Center is a hospital, is a place to help and assist those that are struggling. So in order to do that, we need the Spiritist Center to be open to the attacks and to protect itself from the spirits that come to struck it, as it says here. But it needs to keep moving, because if it stops, like they say here, it delays its journey. And if it does not defend itself, it's threatened by sea monsters. Here the comparison is for the evil spirits that want to harm the workers and the work that has been done. And then we create problems, and a lot of Spiritist centers end up having issues because those that are responsible for it do not focus their attention on preserving the higher vibration of a Spiritist center. And he continues, even if the pace seems slow, let us proceed steadily. The work belongs to the one who assigned us for the trip, and the port shines full of light and blessing. Meaning, let's not try to rush. The work that we do in a Spiritist center is a work of educating ourselves and educating those that come to the center. It's to help and assist those in need that come to the Spiritist Center in search of assistance spiritually, physically, and mentally. For the incarnates and for the discarnates, to help with their connections with the incarnate one. If we continue to work slowly but surely, we will succeed, because we will be protected, like he says here, by the one who assigned us for the trip. We all came here with responsibilities that we received before incarnation, facing the challenges and difficulties of our daily lives, but with the responsibility of doing our part. Again, we are not asked to do more of what we can do. We cannot give what we don't have, but what we have, we can give. We can share and we can work, because in the end, the work is for ourselves. Every time we are helping someone else, we are really helping ourselves. The charity that we do is in the end for ourselves. It is not always that the presence of wind that subdues the ships that sail bravely is often the absence of a compass. And the compass is a safe guide to the necessary steps for the accomplishment of the duties to which we have been called. I'll open to you, Luis, in a second, after I comment on this. What he's saying here is that a Spiritist Center has to have an objective and follow its path. It's to have a compass, knowing where to go. If you start getting distracted by things that do not belong in a Spiritist Center, or things that are doing half-hearted, you are going to to get lost in the sea, as they say here. So it's better to have less classes, but to have them seriously conducted than trying to cover everything every day and have studies that are not serious, distractions, or sometimes, which we see sometimes in a Spiritist Center, distractions that do not belong in a Spiritist Center. Again, there's nothing wrong with other beliefs, studies, but a Spiritist Center is to study Spiritism, to learn and help according to the teachings of Kardec and Spiritism. Chromotherapy has nothing to do in a Spiritist Center. As an example, it can be practiced, and you can go and study it and practice it, but you cannot bring it to a Spiritist Center, because that's a distraction, and that's what the spirits are advising us to be careful. It's the lack of a compass, opening a Spiritist Center to all sorts of things that do not belong to a Spiritist Center, that you run the risk of causing it to end up facing problems. Luis.
No, I think I should wait till later.
Okay, all right. You raise your hand again when you want to talk. So what's the recipe? No matter what happens, let us make use of prayer to reconcile differences that may arise. Again, the most important tool that we have to make the work of a Spiritist Center bear fruits and to protect it is to pray. But to pray here means to ask, to praise, and to receive. Again, to ask for protection, to thank the spirits for the help and assistance that they are giving us, and to thank them and to ask for the assistance for those.
You went mute again, okay?
The screen's
For me,
froze. I'm not.
always very important, the work of a Spiritist Center. Sometimes people are,
Oh.
you lost me again, you lost me again. I'm back.
About 30 seconds again.
Okay, so prayer, it's important here. And sometimes people ask, why should we pray at a Spiritist Center? Why we have prayer at the opening or the close? It does seem sometimes like rituals, and it's not ritual. When you open the meeting with a prayer, is to an opportunity for everyone to raise their vibrations, to connect to each other. It's not the words, it's the vibration. When you close, when you do a prayer before the passes, is again to bring everyone together in vibration, to connect to one to another and connect to the spiritual benefactors. And we end up the meetings with prayers to protect everyone for the week ahead, to allow everyone to leave with their thoughts elevated and with the good vibrations, the good energy that Spiritist Center can bring to them. So again, each one will leave with their own thoughts, their own ideas. We always recommend that people leave the Spiritist Center and do not stay at the door having discussions and conversations, because that gives the opportunity for spirits that stayed outside because they were not allowed inside the Spiritist Center to reconnect with those that they arrived with. So, you lose the efficacy of the work that you went to do in the Spiritist Center. So the recommendation is to leave the Spiritist Center and move away from it, not to reconnect with the spirits that were left outside the Spiritist Center. Okay, so that's why prayer is important. It's not a ritual. And again, if you say the prayers repeating words that you know by heart, but you are thinking of something else, you lose the efficacy of the prayer. The prayer exists for us to elevate our vibrations and to connect with the spiritual benefactors. Okay. On chapter 52, it's a passage from Brother X, which we know was Humberto de Campos, a spirit that was a writer and member of the Brazilian Academy. And when he was not a spiritist when he was alive, incarnated. When he went back to the spiritual world, he started writing messages through the medium Francisco Xavier, and eventually his family sued the Brazilian Spiritist Federation to receive rights for his work, because they said if it's him writing, they have the right to receive royalties for his work. They ended up losing the judicial battle. The justice did not recognize it as that they have rights to the royalties, but Humberto de Campos became very upset with his family and decided to change his name and started signing as Brother X. So all the books that were received after this event were signed by Brother X, but we know it's Humberto de Campos. He writes very interesting books. Unfortunately, they are not translated into English. We have only some messages. The first one that he wrote, which is called Good Tidings. It's a very good book, talks about passages of the life of Jesus. And it's a very beautiful recollection of the time that Jesus had within us. And also he writes a lot of other things. Also, this chapter, he talks about the perfect group. Mrs. Clara was someone that was there present, incarnated person, assisting, present in the meetings of this group. And Julio Marques was the spiritual director of this small group. We're talking about the Spiritist Center here. So she asked him that she would like to establish a Spiritist group according to my principles. Do you believe that this would be possible? And Julio answers, without a doubt. We are all called to work for God. And again, I brought this, and I think it's important. This is for those that have an idea of how to form a group of study, of a Spiritist group, or how to start this work. So she's asking, she was willing to start a group, and she's asking the questions to the spiritual mentor, the spiritual director of this small group. And she continues, I would like to have an institution where people come together with the strict notion of pure intentions, without selfishness, irritation, misunderstanding, disagreement. You'll be a temple built on the foundation of work who will never fall from grace, offering a permanent example of heavenly behavior on earth for the glorification of charity. Can I count on you? And Julio answers, oh child, I'm afraid I'm not qualified for the task. I'm true imperfect spirit. I'm very attached to the earth. And she asks him, but we receive so many teachings from you. And he answers, these teachings do not belong to me. They belong to the mentors who sympathize with my deficiencies. Again, a lot of times when we are working at the Spiritist centers, when we are directing, talking in mediumship meetings, when we are giving lectures, giving presentations, giving talks, we are always guided and inspired if we commit to the work, and we are protected and inspired. And that's what Julio is telling here. The teachings doesn't belong to him, they belong to the mentors that are assisting him. And then she continues, but somewhere there must be an impeccable association. Tell me, brother Julio, do you know of a flawless group as the one I am describing? And if you do, where can I find it? And then he answers, yes, my child, such a perfect group must exist. Surely it must be the group of our Lord Jesus Christ. So there's no such thing as a perfect group. Let us not expect to either find or create a perfect group. We are imperfect spirits, incarnated, trying to learn, to evolve, and trying to do the best that we can. But we are always going to find things that we do not agree wherever we go, in our work, in our lives, watching TV. So it's our responsibility to accept the imperfections of the group, work to change them if we can, or exercise patience with the difficulties that others have at Spiritist groups. I remember talking to a director of a Spiritist Center here in the US some time ago, a long time ago, and she said that when she opened the Spiritist Center, she was very concerned that everything worked perfectly. You know, she was taking care of every minor detail of the group, you know, the color of the drapes, the disposition of the chairs, besides the teachings, the classes. And what she said, what happened is she started alienating workers all the time. People could not continue working at the Spiritist Center because she was too rigid and too strict on her decisions. And after a certain point, she spoke with one of these spiritists that travel. I'm not sure. I think it was Raul Teixeira at that time, and Raul, if it was him, but maybe it was not. This mentor, incarnate spiritist speaker told her, listen, you cannot be strict on the accessories. You have to be strict on the doctrine. Do not deviate from the doctrine, from the teachings of Kardec and the teachings of the spirits that work to continue the teachings of Kardec. Do not open the Spiritist centers for things that do not belong to Spiritism. But do not be strict on things that you don't really need to control the color of the drapes, the disposition of the chairs, the time of the studies. These are all things that are not important as long as someone is responsible and you keep it organized in a way that it works. So she said that after that is when the Spiritist Center started to grow, started to develop the studies and the work in a positive way. So we have to ask ourselves, are we focusing on the main objectives, or are we focusing too much on the details? And if we are focusing too much on the details, we have to rethink, because what we are here to do is to evolve and to learn. And if we get distracted by things that do not belong to the main discussion, we end having the risk of distracting ourselves. And that's what the spirits that want to disturb the work of a Spiritist Center are going to focus on these small disputes, in internal disputes that are the reason to get everyone distracted and the group to fall into trouble. So let's not expect perfection from ourselves. Let's not ask for perfection from others, but let's strive to achieve perfection. It's the objective, but we cannot get frustrated with the challenges that we face and the imperfections that exist within the work, as we are all imperfect spirits trying to evolve. As Jesus said, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. This is chapter 53 and talks of us in the Spiritist group. This is a message from Emmanuel. And we know that Emmanuel is the one that is very strict, very rigid in his teachings. He asks us and challenges us to work as serious as we can. And then he tells us, since we know that each worker in the Christian Spiritist field undertakes a specific task, we must ask ourselves from time to time who we are within the working group in which we belong. Are we a key to solve problems or an element that aggravates them? And again, all these questions that Emmanuel is going to ask us, it's questions for us to ask ourselves and to reflect. We don't need to answer this to anyone else, but to ourselves. What are we doing with our work as Spiritists? Are we a key to solve problems when we are in a Spiritist Center? Are we helping the work, or are we only bringing our own problems, our own disagreements, our own issues, and we are just making things worse for the Spiritist Center? And again, we're talking about those that go to a Spiritist Center on a regular basis, not someone that arrives at the Spiritist Center full of issues to resolve, to be solved, to look for help. These are the ones that we are there to help and assist them. A Spiritist Center exists to console and to educate. And consolation is what those that come full of problems are looking for, and it is our responsibility to help and assist them. But when you've been going to a Spiritist Center for a long time and you are still bringing only problems and not solutions, it's time to ask yourself, am I really helping it, or am I being selfish and only thinking about myself instead of thinking about the group? Am I a companion that attends the classes diligently, or an associate out of boredom only turns up occasionally? What is our objective in going to a Spiritist Center? To help, to learn, to educate ourselves, to be of assistance for others that go there, or just to show up when we can, when we have time, when we have nothing better to do? Again, our choices. You don't need, we have to ask ourselves. But if we are in the second case, is that what we really want? Is that the best use of our time? Or are we just using it to distract ourselves from our issues, our problems? Am I a friend who understands and assists, or a chronic judge who condemns and complicates everything? I go to a Spiritist Center, I find problems in each step of the way. Someone that is talking there is not saying what he or she should. Someone that is giving passes, it's too fast, too slow. It is taking too long. This prayer is taking too long. This class is boring. Why these people are just talking over and over about the same things? These are all the things that if we are not careful, we may end up thinking when we are in a Spiritist Center or watching at a distance. And we have to think for ourselves. Do we want to help the group, the spiritual environment of the center, of those that participate? Am I understanding and assisting, meaning giving strength for those that are there, trying to do their best, even if it's not what we expect? But if they are doing their best, it's our responsibility to help and assist them through maintaining our concentration, our elevated vibrations, and our thoughts. Are we a restoring balm or a corrosive acid? Again, what we are doing in the Spiritist Center, we are there giving solutions or creating more difficulties for the spirit mentors that are there, the spirit workers that keep having to surround us with a protective shield so we don't contaminate the rest of the group. Are we a nurse dedicated to practicing good within the community, or a patient that must be born and nursed by others? Again, talking about those that keep going to the Spiritist Center in search of help and assistance and forget themselves to help and assist others. We all have problems. We all have issues. We need to deal with our own issues. We need workers of a Spiritist Center need to ask for help if they need help, if they are struggling, if they have problems. It's part of being a worker at the Spiritist Center. But if we keep bringing problems all the time and never solutions, we are always a patient but never a nurse, there is something wrong with ourselves, and we have to reflect. Are we a source of help or a wasteland that benefits no one? Again, Emmanuel is very hard. He challenges us. He makes us ask ourselves, what are we doing with our life? It's not within the Spiritist Center only. These are all questions that we can ask ourselves on our daily lives. Am I a source of help to my family, or am I a wasteland that benefits no one around me in my family? Am I a source of help in my work, or am I creating problems for everyone else in my work instead of bringing solutions, creating more problems? So, we apply this to our daily lives. And you cannot not admire Emmanuel by his discipline, right? Remember when he asked Chico Xavier to work with him, he said, I'm going to ask you to have only 3 things in your life. And Chico asked what? And he said, discipline, discipline, and discipline. That's the only thing he asked Chico to have. And Chico wrote 100 books, and he thought it was the end of it. Emmanuel said, no, that's a good start. Let's do another 100. So when he did 200 books, Chico asked Emmanuel, are we done now? And Emmanuel said, why? Let's do another 100 and let's reflect. And then when Chico finished 300 books, he asked again, so now what? And Emmanuel said, now let's continue until we have no more strength to continue this work. Let's continue to the end. So Chico never asked again. And there are almost 500 books now. When he discarnated, there was a little more than 400, but because of the texts of this type of book, this is a book that was not done by Chico Xavier, Light Ahead, but it's a book by Chico Xavier with the text. So discipline. Emmanuel asks us to have discipline. And he asks that continues, are you a support for good deeds or a breach that allows the influence of evil? This is very important. What are we bringing to a Spiritist Center? The strength to give the opportunity for the Spiritist Center to grow, or are we being a breach that allows evil spirits or inferior spirits to penetrate it? Are a fruitful plant or a destructive parasite? Again, hard works that we have to ask ourselves. And he concludes by saying, if we conduct this self-examination, we will easily find out wherever we are merely a part of Spiritism, or if Spiritism is already a part of us. And that's very beautiful, right? We keep asking ourselves, are we really contributing to ourselves individually, to our moral and intellectual evolution? If we are, if our hearts are fully dedicated to our spiritual evolution and Spiritism is part of who we are, then Spiritism is already a part of us. If we are just using Spiritism as one of many tools for our life, and we get distracted by family, work, issues, Spiritism is only something that we go towards when we have a moment, when we need help, when we don't have anything better to do, we are merely a part of Spiritism. If Spiritism is already a part of us, then we should behave like we have Spiritism in us. And then the last one is another message from Brother X, Humberto de Campos, chapter 54, which is called the Readjusted Group. And he says that a group of gospel apprentices was established requesting opportunities to work. On behalf of several spiritual mentors, Clara was there to serve as well. This time, Clara here is a spirit, not like the other message where she was an incarnated member that wanted to open a group. Here, she's a spiritual mentor of the group. The well-tuned group would operate as precious instrument for heavenly help, no doubt about that. Goodwill, faith, and love was all they would need. You know, that's the basic of what we need to have a group that works towards our Master Jesus, is to have goodwill, to have faith, and to have love. Nonetheless, those companions seem not to be listening. As soon as the spirit of Sister Clara manifested herself, the requests and complaints started. And again, the passage is a long passage that I didn't reproduce everything here. You have all the complaints of all the members of the group, each one complaining to Sister Clara about their work, about their health, about the husband, the wife, the children, the impossibilities of life, the partners, everything. So everyone was there complaining whenever she started manifesting herself. And she proceeded assisting everyone as well as she could. Courageous and optimistic, she would return to the meetings every week, but the environment remained the same. Every week, the participants of the group will inundate her with their personal issues, their personal problems, and why they were not able to do the work on that day, good work. After 10 years of the work, when the group celebrated their 10th anniversary, the spiritual mentor informed them that she would attempt to start the circle's charity work. 10 years they've been working already, and they learned very little. Before the closing prayer, the group leader asked, "Did the benefits reach the absent companion, sister?" Clara kindly explained that it hadn't. It had been unsuccessful. So the work that they were trying to do to help this person that was in need of help wasn't successful because of the distractions that the group brought to themselves. So she brings Brother Claudio and to talk to the group. And through the medium, Mrs. Gertrude, Claudio tells them, "My friends, Spiritism is a doctrine of progress. For 10 consecutive years, you have been helped to learn how to help. There is no doubt that God remains with us. It is necessary to know, however, whether we, in turn, are with God." What he's trying to say is, God is present in each one of us. We know that Spirit is in the Spirit's book. It is said that when we are created, God's laws are imprinted in our conscience. So God remains with us at all times. But are we paying attention to God within us, which was the lecture that our friend Marcelo Neto gave yesterday in the United States Spiritist Federation, God within us? He's asking, are you really working with God, or are you distracted and focusing on everything else but God? And Sister Clara informed, "I believe our inspectors solved the problem, thanks be to God." What she meant was, after 10 years of the group getting all sorts of distraction, they finally received the shakeup that they needed, and they started working towards helping others, not towards helping themselves, which is the objective of all serious workers of a Spiritist Center. You should go to the book and read the complete message. It's very interesting when we talk about all the problems and issues of the personal problems of the group and what took them to finally focus on the help and assisting others and not on themselves. So these were the chapters. This was the presentation that I want to bring, calling our attention to our responsibilities within ourselves and towards the Spiritist groups that we belong to, that we attend? Are we really doing the best that we can, respecting our limitations and understanding our limitations? Or are we not doing the best that we can? And if we are not, we have to question ourselves. Why? Should I do something different? Can I do better? And it is on each one of us to reflect and think about our responsibilities. This is what I wanted to bring to you, and let's talk a little bit about it now, okay? Questions, comments?
Okay,
Elmo.
okay. So I start from the very beginning. And your very first sentence was says that the pandemic changed the Spiritist Center. I think in the pathway of progress, one of the things that happens is the accumulation of values without diminishing the previous values in the past. So with the pandemic, there was the necessity of making use of the media to provide primarily assistance at that difficult time of isolation. It was and it is a wonderful tool that needs to be used. My fear is when we use the word change, we say we have changed from a present participation in our community, educating ourselves and educating others, that we're going to be doing everything now by the use of the media. That would be, in my opinion, a mistake, because now you diminish all the values of the community itself. When Jesus came and said, I have not come to destroy the laws, but to reinforce them. And I think progress is exactly that, is to reinforce what's good and complement with things that you conquer throughout time. So the idea of the spirituals have changed, I have a problem with that. If we use the word changed in a sense that we add another component, but it's just another component that does not means to eliminate, to eradicate other components that are of equal or perhaps, in my opinion, of greater value.
Thanks, Elmo. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Yes, Wayne.
Yeah, reading that, I thought it was very beneficial to always give a look at yourself and your motives and everything like that when you're within the group, within the center, or you're organizing a center. But you know, I wonder, as a relatively new member of Spiritism, I see groups breaking up, centers breaking up over what I would think is, you know, there are people who bring Christ's message into their lives, so that if they have lunch, they're going to have lunch. They say, "Oh, thank you for this food, God," and whereas everyone else is just sitting around the table. So, and they'll bring God, their beliefs into regular life. Now, sometimes in a Spiritist center, you have people who have thoughts of, in my way of thinking, are not in alignment with Spiritism. Let's say you have people who believe in abortion, whatever way, you know, abortion early, abortion late, and you, I'm not saying preach in the way of preach, but you talk about the ills or the negative effects of that occurring, and that pushes away people in your center. Now, if you do introspection of your motives, you actually it seems like you did something good trying to push the right message, but since the majority of the people from their lives are against that, you're breaking up your group. Is that an ego thing that happens? I mean, we all have egos of some sort, but I'm concerned when I see this groups, centers that are broken apart, and I just can't get my finger on it. Seems like someone to ignore the Spiritist doctrine in real life.
Yeah. We are all human.
I made myself clear.
Yes, you made. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. So we are all humans, and it's very difficult for us not to bring our personal bias and our personal prejudices into the Spiritist Center. But Kardec said in the Medium's book, it's better, or in the Spiritist Review actually, it's better to have 20 groups of 20 people than one group of 400 people, because 20 groups of 20 people will give opportunities to many more people to go deeper into the studies, into the taking care of their own progress together with the group. When you are 400 people, there are 3, 4, 10 directing and working, and the rest is just there passively. So that's one thing. So there's nothing wrong. That's how Spiritism has grew. And in Brazil, and here it grew by breaking up from other Spiritist centers. Our group started because we didn't agree with a lack of studies in English on the Spiritist Center we were before. We wanted to do all the study in English, so we opened our group because we wanted to do everything in English. So there's nothing wrong with that in terms of it helps grow Spiritism in the sense that you open more groups. Now, the problem is when we take our personal prejudices and personal bias and try to disseminate them within the Spiritist Center, because we are not there to give our personal opinions. We are there to teach or talk or discuss Spiritism. So, for instance, one thing that is very problematic today, politics. Politics do not belong to in a Spiritist Center. I can have my personal opinions, right, left, center, it doesn't matter. I cannot allow a political discussion inside the Spiritist Center, because that's not Spiritism. Spiritism is not left, it's not right, it's up, it's above all this. When you have your personal opinion, for instance, on abortion that you brought up, that's your personal opinion. But when you go in the Spiritist Center, you shouldn't hear Spiritism is against abortion. No, Spiritism tells us that is against the natural law to kill oneself, to kill others. So if you are committing a crime against yourself, against your fellow being, against a spirit that is in the process of reincarnating, you are going against the natural law, and that's creating consequences for you. But again, if someone comes to the Spiritist Center and says, I don't agree with that, I'm in favor of it, it cannot become a discussion in the Spiritist Center, but we are not going to expel the person from a Spiritist Center because he or she have different views that do not align with Spiritism. If you do not believe that the other day I was watching, and I actually mentioned this before. I was watching a Q&A session in Brazil, and this lady said that she goes to Spiritist Center for like 4 or 5 years, but she still is not comfortable in believing in reincarnation. And again, it's one of the basic tenets of Spiritism. Without believing in reincarnation, I think the whole castle falls apart. But you are not going to kick her out of the Spiritist Center because she doesn't believe in reincarnation. You embrace her and you allow her to express her opinions, to bring the questions, but do not transform it into an issue of discussion, that can cause harm to the rest. Again, one thing that is very important here is you have always to think of the group first. So you go to a Spiritist Center and you are responsible for a study group, and someone tries to disrupt the study, bringing their own personal opinions, interrupting, and really preventing a healthy discussion, you remove that member from the study, from the group. If it's virtual, you block them. If it's presential, you ask them to leave, because the group is more important than any individual. Now, you don't expel this individual from the Spiritist Center. You just ask them if they want to be part of it. They cannot disrupt the harmony of the group. So a group that discriminates against individuals on the basis of their beliefs is not doing the right work that they should have been doing, because we try to disseminate Spiritism according to the teachings of Kardec, and we try to express what Spiritism talks about and what Spiritism teaches us, trying to remove our personal bias and interpretation of it. And Luis, for instance, is very good in his talks. He always uses Spiritism and sources and everything. He rarely tells his own opinion about it. He's always talking what the Spirit tells us, because he always says the spirits know better than we do. They are more evolved than us, these spirits that brought the codification, and Emmanuel and Joana de Angelis. So again, it's very important for us to stick to Spiritism and do not allow distraction. But we have to respect the opinions, we have to embrace everyone, and we have to open everyone to work in a Spiritist Center, regardless of their beliefs. I remember a long time ago, there was a Spiritist Center that I heard that was, like 10, 15 years ago, not here, was in somewhere in Europe, I think, that the director didn't allow someone to be a pass giver because this person was homosexual. And that's something that I couldn't believe when I heard, because your sexual orientation has nothing to do with your ability to work in a Spiritist Center, to be present in a Spiritist Center. So Spiritism teaches us, again, there is nothing in Spiritism that you will read or hear about homosexuality. What Spiritism talks about is the affinity between two spirits, the love between two spirits, the true love, and we are eternal spirits, we have no gender. The problems that we have with our sexual orientations are problems of one incarnation that have to be dealt with. And again, there are more serious problems than sexual orientation. As long, what Spiritism tells us is not to be causing harm to others with our actions. And that includes in our sexual activities, in our behavior in society, in work. And again, a couple that love each other and live together and build and work together to build something regardless of their sexual orientation, it's doing the work that is supposed to be done. So again, I'm talking about one example, but other examples here in this country. You talked about abortion. Abortion is legal in this country. So you are going to receive people in the Spiritist centers that have done abortion, have practiced abortion, and some of them feel no regret on it because it's legal, feel no, and you need to be, again, embracing and respecting their beliefs, explaining what Spiritism teaches us, causes and consequences. And again, on Thursday, we are going to enter into the study of suicide next week on our study of the Spirit's book, which is a very difficult and delicate subject to study in Spiritism, right? And one of the questions talk, the consequence of a suicide is not the same for everyone. Those that commit suicide when they are not with a sane mind, when they have a disturbed mind, they are affected, do not face the same consequence as one that commits suicide because they are planning it, because they want to live this life for different reasons. So again, each person and each action that we make creates consequences, but the consequences are in accordance to the degree of our knowledge and of our understanding. So a Spiritist Center is there to help and assist all those that come, to open the doors to everyone that wants to work. The requisite to work in a Spiritist Center is only one: to be present and to dedicate themselves to the work, and to not bring their personal bias and prejudices, because that really makes it difficult. If if I'm respectful of the opinions and ideas of others and do not interfere with the work, I'm a worker, and the other person is a worker also. Elmo, I want you to add something here.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Luis, I don't remember the sources, but Emmanuel had said once to Chico that the responsibility, obligation of the center is Jesus first, Kardec second, and it stopped right then and there. So I think that a Spiritist Center must have in mind that they're there to serve Jesus, and they used a tool to serve Jesus with the codification of the doctrine presented or codified by Allan Kardec. And that suffices. That's enough in anybody's plate to learn, to develop oneself, and be able to pass along what one is learning to others who care. So if I'm studying the Spirit's book, and the Spirit's book tells right then and there that the incarnate life, it starts at conception, or at the moment the formation of the zygote. That's the start of life. Someone will say, I don't believe it. Fine. That's what the book's presented to us. I am presenting you the book, what the book says. There is not much room for opinion, right? There is room for believe or don't believe, right? And then it says there, let's say, let's just use an example. Again, we are presenting a book, what's written in the book, not my opinion, not anybody's opinion. It says there that we should not eliminate any life. Well, if the light starts at the moment of the formation of the zygote, we should not eliminate anything post the zygote, right? And then it says also there that abortion should only be used when the life of the mother is at risk, and gives a reason for it, because there is already an spirit with well-developed that perhaps could generate another zygote in the future. It's better to preserve that as already there, the one that is in the very beginning. Makes sense to me. Will be there those who will agree or disagree with that? Yes. But again, there isn't that much room for personal opinions. Agree or disagree, believe or disbelieve. And in Spiritism, we should be fine with all of that. But when I'm presenting a book, I'm presenting a book, not my opinion. It's there in the book, right? Now we have to make the differentiation of when the individual who goes to the Spiritist Center hears some things and say, oh, I am offended by that, or I can't participate in this group because this or this and that. That is on the individual. The Spiritist Center cannot do anything about that. It is the case that I say something and someone gets offended. Or did I say something with the intention of offending someone? Or what I said was indeed offensive? Or is that the receiver who's receiving a message as an offense for whatever reasons? We all have our atavism, we all have our difficulties, right? And very often, someone will be offended because of themselves, not because someone did something to offend, someone said something that was offensive. We present the book as the book is, and each one will take or not take in accordance. For some, that presentation, what is in the book, not a personal opinion, is enough for them to not want to be a part of that doctrine or that group, and then they will look for something that is better for them, that is more in alliance with their own opinion. We thus create a problem of we not expanding ourselves. If I'm not open to new opinions, to new ideas, and analyze them, how am I going to grow? If I incarcerate inside my cocoon of my own opinions, of my own beliefs, and not open to anyone else. The Spiritist Center is not a democracy, it should not be, but not an absolutism. It's got to hear everyone, respecting everyone, not imposing anything upon anyone, but not deviating from Jesus, not deviating from Kardec. And again, those two is enough in our plate. You don't need any external thing in the Spirit Center outside of Jesus and Kardec.
Okay, Wayne.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. All right. So I think we can finish here. Next Sunday, the first Sunday of the month, we are going back to the book Between Heaven and Earth, and I believe it's chapters 9 and 10, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see here. 9 and 10, yes. We finally arrive at the place where the colony of the children. So if you're interested in see where children go in the spiritual world after if they die young, that's next week study of Between Heaven and Earth. Okay, Luis.
Well, I was wondering if I should, use my 2 cents on this discussion or not. I was not going to, but I changed my mind anyway. I was actually reading those chapters thanks to Amazon Unlimited. It's fantastic while we were presenting, and you did a wonderful job on transmitting what's in there. But allow me to go a step back. And why do we go to a Spiritist center? I think that's a central operational question. And obviously the key thing is it's not a ceremony. It's not something like, you know, other people do in other assemblies, let's say. Nothing interesting, you know, will fall on our heads just by being there. So if we stick to doctrine, I understand it. Please disagree with me if that's what you think. The objective of the Spiritist Center is to provide study, help, and assistance. So if our responsibility as a worker, if we go there, is to participate on the study, helping, and assisting. Not only studying with others and helping them, you know, understand the doctrine, but also us as ourselves studying, not only assisting others, but allowing us to be assisted and help. And there's something very special, in my opinion, on this operational part of the Spiritist Center, is that when you attend in person, you are able to participate as a worker on mediumship meetings. And mediumship meetings, in my view, are very special inside the Spiritism, because although, you know, we understand that mediumship is something that belongs to the human race, not to the Spiritism itself. But inside Spiritism, mediumship is very, very special because it allows us to communicate with the spirits that are not incarnated, that are in the spiritual world. And this communication allow us to hear messages from, you know, spirits more enlightened than us, or I like to say with a better point of view, that the point of view that we have while incarnated, and also allow us to help other spirits not incarnated that are in a very challenging position at that particular moment. And so with the help of mediums, with the help of orientators, it allows us in the Spiritist Center to give help to them, to, you know, in a way, allow them to be guided, to give access to things that they would not have access if it were not for us. So, point being, our responsibility in the Spirit Center is not only to teach and learn in the limited context of this incarnation of us incarnated beings in the group, but to have the rare opportunity to glimpse, you know, a little more about the actual reality of the universe by ourselves. And while doing this, helping others, incarnated and discarnated, and allowing us to learn more, to learn, you know, actual things about the universe around us. So, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I think that this dimension of the Spiritist Center as a physical entity and the work that happens there with our physical presence, not online, is something very, very special. And it's our responsibility to keep it alive and our privilege to be there, not only testimonies of what happened, but also helping those things happen. Sorry about the long speech.
No, it was good. Yeah, I didn't go much into the work of a mediumship meeting because I think that um, you know, the other day someone asked this on this Q&A session, can a Spiritist Center call itself a Spiritist Center if it doesn't have a mediumship meeting? And I thought it was a very good question. And his answer was yes, it can, as long as you are working, studying Spiritism, as you are trying to help and assist people, doing the other works that a Spiritist Center does, you call yourself a Spiritist Center. But if you don't have the objective of someday having a mediumship meeting, then there is something that is lacking in being a Spiritist Center. But you can call it yourself a Spiritist Center if you are studying the works of Kardec or the other works, and you're providing assistance and help. But a mediumship meeting is an integral part of a Spiritist Center and not something that should be taken lightly. So yes, what you brought, I think it's very important. I mentioned something else here on Thursday on our study, right? That I read a message from Dr. Bezerra de Menezes that I think it's important to repeat here. That just to conclude, that someone was telling Dr. Bezerra in a meeting, right, when he was still incarnate, that I don't think that I can call myself a Spiritist. I have inferior tendencies. I have envy. I get jealous. I get angry. And then how can I call Spiritist a Christian Spiritist if I have all these imperfections still in me? And Dr. Bezerra answered, yes, you can call yourself a Spiritist because before you had all of this and didn't care about it. Now you have all these imperfections and you care about it. You know that there are imperfections and you are working to improve them. So you can call yourself a Spiritist. Elmo.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no time is up. I just want to compliment. I totally agree with Luis. But even outside of the mediumship meetings, all the paraphernalia that exists in the Spiritist Center, in the spiritual side of it, that we do not understand, that we benefit by being there, that would be extremely difficult, perhaps not even possible to benefit having what we're doing right now, doing our meetings, each one in our home. Jesus have told and said that no, where two or more would God in my name, that would be. Does not eliminate the possibility that Jesus with us all the time, even if we're by ourselves, okay? But he does there propose the idea of gathering together in his name. That's one thing. And then later on, he stimulated Paul of Tarsus to open the churches, communion, people getting together to better oneself in his name without using his teachings. So there is power in number. Of course, quality is better than quantity. And that's why in our Mondays, from time to time, I like to remind ourselves in there, who we get for treatment, that even though we are all patients over there in need of treatment, we all have within us the potential to share goodness that we have within ourselves with one another. It's like two patients in a hospital room can console one another, can help one another, can even call the nurse for one another when it's needed, which would not be possible if one is alone. So there is the necessity of those who seeks to better ourselves to congregate with a common objective, okay, to increment to augment our own power for the benefit of everyone present over there. So I think the return to the Spiritist Center is an essential for the doctrine itself and for ourselves who are using the doctrine as an instrument for our growth.
Thanks, Elmo. Okay, Carol, can you do our final prayer, please?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, John, for the enlightening presentation. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, Luis, and everyone who is here today participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the opportunity to be together again for our presentation today. The main work of a Spiritist Center is to study, educate ourselves and others, and to assist the mental, physical, and spiritual needs of incarnates and disincarnates. A center needs to have an objective and a true compass directed to where it must go to be of assistance. It is important for a center to have this focus to lessen distractions and internal disputes. Prayers are very important and are used to ask for protection, safety, and to give thanks to the spiritual benefactors for the assistance and the elevated vibrations that are given. What are we doing to console and educate? Are we helping or are we assisting? What is our objective? What is our purpose in our daily life? Is Spiritism part of this? Are we doing the best that we can? We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the helpers, the spiritual protectors for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, the teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and world peace, and those now who are suffering in the spiritual world as well as the physical world. We pray for SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world that they may grow, they may thrive, they may be expanding their endeavors, and may they always be protected. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we remind ourselves to go forth now as beacons of light, of love, of peace, of charity, and of service. So be it.